Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Huckabee, and welcome to Conversations with Nicole. My guest today is Michael Cogdill, a remarkable individual whose unexpected journey in television sparked a career of profound storytelling and public service. He earned numerous awards during his career, including 32 Emmy Awards. It's incredible. Michael's career in broadcasting was amazing. You'll hear about the history making events he's covered and the people he's interviewed like the late Reverend Billy Graham. Michael is co founder of Heartstrong Media, a consulting and content company, and a prolific writer with upcoming children's books and novels. You are really going to enjoy hearing about Michael's journey and his future plans. Of course, be sure to follow him on LinkedIn. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I'm delighted to have as my guest today Michael Cogdill. He is an award-winning journalist. He is the co-founder of Heartstrong Media, a consulting and content company. He's a children's book author. He's writing a novel. He's got so much going on in his life. And we come from the same background of television news. So I'm so excited to have you as my guest today, Michael.
You are so kind to me, Nicole. I am honored to be here. Yes, we spring from the same crucible
Yes, we
of
did.
TV news. We sure do.
We survived.
Yeah, we did. We did, and we left.
Yeah, we survived. We left, we retired, we moved on. You're doing some amazing things now with your company and in writing children's books and a novel that is soon to become a movie, I understand. But before we get to all of that next chapter, I want to start with your background. Tell folks where you grew up and how you evolved into the world of television news.
I grew up, Nicole, in Weaverville, North Carolina, a town about the size of this room, as a matter of fact.
Pretty
Not,
small.
not much bigger, and it hasn't changed very much. It's certainly not grown since I grew up there. I'm a grown man now, and it's still in its infancy. No, it's 100 years old. It is a charming, wonderful little place. I grew up in an alcoholic home. My dad hit bottom when I was 17 years old, and much before that is a blur. But he bounced into a truly beautiful man. He proves what God can do in a man's life when the people who are enabling him take their hands off and let God have him. And
Amen.
that's how I started. And my news career was really germinated in that boyhood because this is the part I remember and I lean into because my dad loved the news, and we would sit and watch the likes of Harry Reasoner, Howard K. Smith, Peter Jennings, eventually the great Peter Jennings, and God rest their souls. The first person I ever interviewed in TV news, by the way, was Howard K. Smith. I was terrified, and so that started. And I remember watching Vietnam stream into our home there in Weaverville, North Carolina. When you're a kid, you think I'm going to Vietnam. There's no end in sight to this. But I wanted to go potentially as a correspondent. And of course, never did that, thankfully. But I watched these men and women, the likes of Barbara Walters, I watched them work and with such grace and elan and such caring, caring for the dying and the dead and the families of the dead. They took it very seriously, the fourth estate and what it says, what it does. We carry human grief. We carry the weightiest of matters literally on our breath. And you have to take that seriously, but not yourself too seriously. And that was one of the magic, sort of the magic bonuses, if you will, of Jennings. And that's what got me started in it. And I sounded like Ernest T. Bass for the Andy Griffith Show. People said, you are never going to make it. I was told over and over and over again, you're never going to make it. The secret is I didn't believe them. I believed what was in here and in here, and believed in education. And my dad believed in education. And by the grace of God, I did. So did you. Sort of the encapsulation of my
That's
boyhood right
incredible.
there. But we can talk about more.
That's incredible. No, that's incredible because a lot of people could have been in your situation and said, how will I ever get out of this? I'll just give up. You did not. You knew there was more that you wanted to do. And actually, I hear you saying there were stories that you wanted to tell. And that's what led you to the career that you were in. During your career, you interviewed a lot of folks. Talk about your walk in television news with some of the stories that you covered, the ones that were impactful to you. I have a feeling I might know some of them and been right there with you.
Mhm. Susan Smith is a big one. This is the 30th anniversary this year of her drowning her boys. And let's see, 1994, yeah. And so it'll be 30 years next year that she was convicted. That was in many many ways a baptism by fire for me. I was down there live field anchoring. The anchor at WIFF4 was about to retire, and I became the heir apparent in covering that story. Traveling the country with Billy Graham, the Reverend Billy Graham. He always wanted me to call him Billy. I said, I'm not calling you Billy. I'm sorry. You're going to be
I
the
don't
Reverend Graham to me. My mother
I
will
don't
whip
take
me.
you that either, Michael. That seems a little disrespectful for
I
sure.
know, and I never would do it. The most humble, sweet, gentle man. This man was on the Gallup surveys, most trusted people in the world 61 times. No one will ever come close to that. No one else will ever come close to that, Nicole. And his humility is what marks so much of that reporting. This is a man who's pastor to presidents, and he didn't want to talk about that. He didn't want to talk about himself. He wanted to talk about Christ. He wanted to talk about God. That's what he was all about. And he wanted to hear about you. He wanted to know about you. And there was not a judgmental atom in the man's being. It's just the way he was. I remember I've never really been that awestruck. I mean, when you interview President Obama in the White House, you're going to be awestruck. Just and the network correspondents up there say every day we come here, it is not lost on us what it is we're doing. But I remember being awestruck also in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Georgia Dome. And the Reverend Graham was preaching. 85,000 people are in the house. And they let the reporters walk up to the stage, to the dais before it all happened. And there sat the Reverend Billy Graham, whom I had interviewed. I'd gotten to know him by then, but you still, I mean, here he is with 85,000 people who've come to hear him. There was him. There was President Carter, who, God love him, is still with us. A year in hospice care, the man is still alive. And there sat next to them Coretta Scott King. Yeah,
Wow.
you know, this is the city of Martin Luther King Jr. This is one of the seats of the civil rights movement. And a lot of people don't realize Billy Graham was very involved with Dr. King. They went to South America together. He was one of the only people who got to call Martin Luther King Mike. He had to be in the inner circle. And he and King were very close. Of course, Dr. Graham was a leader in civil rights. He refused to speak to segregated crowds. He said, if those barriers are here tomorrow, I will not be here. And he stood up there. He introduced Coretta Scott King, and the place erupted, of course. And I mean, you've heard 85,000 people sing a hymn.
Uh-oh.
I think you should go out of your way to make friends with a person of another race. And you could have heard a pin drop.
Mm.
And in that sermon, he also said, Billy Graham is a sinner, and Billy Graham deserves judgment, and Billy Graham deserves hell. Again, you could have heard a pin drop. There was this great sense of this grace thing is actually real. But see, we covered him without getting attached, with a detachment, without getting attached to our faith. I didn't have to set my faith aside, but I had to be fair and honest. There's no objectivity. David Brinkley said objectivity is nonsense. There's no object, there's none of that. You have to be fair and honest in your subjectivity. Then you're getting somewhere. And to do that, I think we accomplished something with just reporting on him as a man. I'm a man. He's a man. He's one of the most significant figures in history, and yet if I could just listen to him and then tell the story without any prism of my bias whatsoever. And Nicole, we have lost that in this country. We have lost that in the fourth estate, and it's got to come back. That's another conversation for another day.
Yeah,
But
that's
in
another
terms of
podcast for another time, but a
yes,
lot has
yes,
definitely changed in the business that we love so much, a business that we held in our hearts and we knew that we had the desire and the passion to tell a story and to be just only fact driven, not
right.
not opinion driven, but
Correct.
fact driven. And
Correct.
I would agree with you on that. Those are some powerful stories. I mean, you've had an amazing career. 32 Emmy Awards, is that correct?
32 Emmys. I was surrounded by greatness. I worked with some of the best in the country, great photographers, and we had a big, grand, beautiful time doing it. Loved every minute of it. Sure did.
I know you also covered the Charleston church shootings, the Emmanuel 9, Charleston.
That's the worst.
It was
That's
all
the worst of them
a
all.
day for South Carolina and our nation.
It
Yes.
sure was the human race. And one of the things that was a takeaway, still is, Nicole, from that time, they sent me down there to field anchor, and so I get there. I grabbed helter skelter. I didn't have a jacket, and it's June. It's hot, and all the network anchors, David Muir is over here, and we all got our heads together. And we said, we cannot do this without a jacket on. You can't stand in front of Mother Emanuel, this old church, and talk about 9 people losing their lives because of their race, because of the color of their skin, without a jacket. So everybody's scrambling around to get a jacket. But here's the real takeaway, Nicole. The opposite happened. Dylan Roof thought he was going to set off a race war. Instead, he set off a unity that I think is still reverberating. We saw tourists who were in Charleston, for the summertime, blacks and whites embracing in front of that church. They didn't know one another's first name, much less last name, but they had come down there. They'd come down there just to stand vigil. And we watched them embrace one another, hug one another. It was world changing for people. It truly, truly was.
I get chills hearing you talk because I tell that same exact version of how
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina came to the plate and said, "You will not divide us. You will not
Correct.
destroy us. We are a united people and we will show you love. We will not show you hatred. One bad apple will not be a reflection of what South Carolina is all about." And I
Correct.
love that you feel the same way about what happened to us
Hmm.
when he tried to destroy, the faith, the perseverance, the kindness, the love that we have in South Carolina. It would not be destroyed. If anything, it was strengthened
It
because
was.
we love each other. There were no riots. There were people
Hmm.
coming together just as you described it. And I have always been proud to be a South Carolinian and to be able to report that on the air.
Right.
Right. The tragedy of that day, I was thankful that we showed who we were as a
Hmm.
good people in South Carolina.
And you did not objectify anybody, did you? The whole objectivity thing. It's like I say to people, if God forbid, if something happens to someone you dearly love and that makes news, do you want me to objectify that person? Do you want me to objectify your grief? No, I'm never going to objectify it. It's like, again, David Brinkley said, we have to be honest and fair in our subjectivity. And that is what you and I did. And so many other great reporters, the network reporters, you couldn't stand there and not have your heart broken.
That's right.
No one wants that story filtered through an unbroken heart. No.
100%. You've really covered some powerful people, some very worldwide known people, and some really tragic events that happened in South Carolina and globally as well. And it's a good thing that we had people like you covering them then. You
Likewise, back at you.
Thank you. So let's fast forward
Mhm.
to you decide it's time for me to leave local news.
Time to go.
Time to go.
Yes.
Tell us about your next chapter, my friend.
Next chapter has been so far in abundance than I ever expected. We came out of the gate with a wonderful client, Bell Legal Group, J. Edward Bell, who wrote to the Lejeune Justice Act to gain justice for those Marines and Marine Corps families who were poisoned by the water at Camp Lejeune. We we set that in motion. He set it in motion, and we just followed along. We were his marketing firm. We were his messaging firm. We were in part kind of a de facto lobbying firm to get it done, and we got it done. The bill passed. We haven't seen that kind of bipartisanship in years, and haven't seen it since, quite frankly. And so these Marines and Marine Corps families are getting their justice after all, and that's what started us on this journey. And we do that, and we do children's books too. So it's a very diverse life that I have now. I got a new children's book coming out here, hopefully in the next couple of months, called "Where Did Joe Go?"
Where did Joe go? Well, tell me about your first book.
Now, the first book, She Rain, really the first book was a children's book, Cracker the Crab in the Sideways Afternoon. I did that one with my ex-wife, and she and I still have a great relationship. And then there was She Rain, which is a novel that debuted in 2010. Had got great reviews, but we got the rights back. It was just poorly timed in the launch. So we're going to relaunch this book. We're working to make a motion picture out of it, and we, Nicole, want to own it. It is not for sale to Hollywood. We want to own the rights to the book, the rights to the film, work with a wonderful financier, and kind of change the world of Hollywood. The book is about a backwater boy from Appalachia and how two extraordinary women, one black, one white, take him kind of by the hair of the emotional and spiritual head and pull him into a man. They pull a man out of that backwater boy, a
Oh,
boy who's assailed by poverty, ignorance, domestic violence, addiction, and not his addiction, but his father's. And it's one of those books. I don't really know how I got here with it. I would write it. Most of it was written at around 3 and 4 in the morning after I did the 11 o'clock news.
how about that? Well, just from hearing you speak about the book, it sounds as if maybe you took some of your own life experiences and
Absolutely.
were weaving them into this story.
hmm Yeah, my first memory as a child was my father beating my mother unmercifully on the floor of our home in Arden, North Carolina. And then fast forward, my father is someone I miss profoundly every day, and my mother missed him. He went from one of the most broken, disordered, addicted men you would ever meet to one of the most beautiful. A man of peace, a man of grace, a man of profound love. I miss him every day. I miss my mom every day. My mom died in this room where I am right now in my office, and she missed him to her final breath. He is forgiven and he is loved.
I was going to ask, was the life change from higher power?
Absolutely. I don't know the content of the conversation my father had on our kitchen floor with God Almighty. But when I finally got out of the way and stopped enabling him as a 17-year-old kid, and my mother did the same thing, then he hit bottom. Then when a man like that has no one to talk to except God, and he's got a foot and a half in the grave, he's going to go one of two directions. And I urge people, stop doing for others what they're more than capable and what is demanded of them to do for themselves. The very definition of codependency is doing for others what they can do and must do for themselves. And
Absolutely.
it's rampant. It's rampant. We stop doing it.
That's a powerful story. And I'm sure you could take all of those life lessons and experiences that you've had personally, professionally,
Mhm.
and continue to immerse them into books and novels and as you move forward. I mean, what's next for you?
We're gonna have Where Did Joe Go will come soon. It's illustrated by a bona fide American genius. His name is George Pachepsov. I interviewed George when he was arguably the most famous modern artist in the world. George was compared to Picasso and Chagall all over the world. His paintings were selling for $250,000, $500,000. He had done $9 million in charity work. What made it interesting, Nicole, is when I interviewed him, George Pachepsov was 11 years old.
Oh my gosh.
He's a complete prodigy, child prodigy, totally untrained. The first thing he ever did that sold, he was about 18 months old. He couldn't even talk yet. And he drew a picture of two women he saw at the window with some Crayola markers on a piece of 8.5 by 11 paper. And his mother saw it. They're Ukrainians. His mother saw it. She kind of thought somebody had gotten in the house. And she took it to an art dealer and said, "Is this anything?" And he looked at it and said, "Yes, yes, let me have that." It sold, Nicole, for $10,000.
Are you
Bear in
kidding?
mind, he's like 18 months old. It
Oh my
sold for $10,000. And fast forward, now he's painting. He's probably 5 or 6 and selling. He hangs in Oprah's house in California, Michael Jordan, Colin Powell, Celine Dion, on and on. So his mother decides, well, I want that first one back. That's the first refrigerator art my son ever drew. It cost her $40,000 to get it back. and it's hanging in her house in Riceville Beach, North Carolina. Last I checked, then a nice little frame, 8.5 by 11. So I wrote the book. It lay there for a while, and then I got serious about getting it out there. And Where Did Joe Go is about a horse who falls in love with a little girl, and she falls in love with him, and they have this wonderful romp through life. But horses don't live as long as little girls. And so Joe must go. Joe dies. What then? Well, she's heartbroken, of course, and her Nanas are very wise, Nicole, as we know, reminds her every time you love him, every time you remember him, every time you keep him right here, he's alive. Our memories grant immortality. Our memories, our love of others. People die, but love doesn't die, it doesn't stop. It carries on. And there is a mortal immortality in that. That's what the book is about. Yeah. And so I called up George. I said, you want to illustrate this thing? And I'm terrified. And he said, send it to me. By this time, he's a graduate of Harvard. He had a free ride scholarship from every Ivy League school. And he calls me back and he says, I love it. Yes, I'm in. All right, how much is this going to cost me? So he says a number out loud. I said, sold. Boom, we're doing it. So the book is a whole lot of him and a little bit of me. And it is beautiful. I was just before we started recording this, I was looking at the latest files from the designer, and it is magnificent. Thanks to him. Thanks to George.
Well, I would say it sounds like a good partnership there, Michael. You're not giving yourself enough credit. How did you even get started on wanting to write books, children's books and novels? I mean, obviously you're a writer and you're a storyteller, but that's a next level.
The real genesis of it, Nicole, was in about the 6th grade. And I was that kid, and everybody kind of knew my dad was troubled, and I was a very quiet, very shy kid in the 6th grade. And bullying really starts at about the 6th grade. That's where it really kicks into gear. And so I was dealing with that. And there was an assignment given by the teacher, a wonderful lady, and right around Thanksgiving, and she handed mine back. It was a writing assignment, and I liked the grade. And do you ever hear, you just almost hear somebody, you can feel somebody staring at you.
Yeah.
You can feel their eyes on you. As I'm looking down, I can feel her staring at me. And she says then those horrible words, Mr. Cogdill, will you please stand and read your paper to the class? And it's like, oh, no. And I wanted to do TV news at the time, but I wasn't quite ready.
Yeah, you weren't there yet.
So, but you know, you got to do it. And so I did. And I stood, and I'm sure it was just god awful. And people are snickering all around. It was a combine 5th and 6th grade class. I sit down, and there's this awful silence again. She's staring, and she looked at me, and she said, Mr. Cogdill, you are going to be a writer someday. And she just let it hang there. And everybody shut up. Everybody stopped laughing. And that's always stuck with me. I said, somehow I'm going to live up to that. So all the Emmys, all the awards, it's all on writing. That's where it all hangs. It's you got to be a writer to win these things. You got to be a writer to win hearts and minds. And so I worked at it from that time forward. And then if you're afflicted with the idea of fiction writing, you know, children's novels, and the novels are they're not children's books, you're just going to do it. And Joe, as I recall, was written mostly on my phone.
How about that?
That's how that happened. I've written a couple of children's books on my phone. I started writing the first one on a cardboard box in the garage. You just get an idea and you run with it. You just go. It's going to happen.
Yes.
And
so what do you want to write next? Anything on your mind?
I am writing a novel right now, working titled The Sinners of Honeysuckle Road. It is about a couple of kids in the late 60s who fall in love. Seems like a cliche, but it's not. He's wrong side of the tracks. She is of great wealth. And he's going to Vietnam, and everybody knows it. He wants to get into those helicopters in Vietnam. He wants to be a hero to somebody. And these kids are absolutely crazy, wild, in love with each other. It's not just they're stooping on the beach. No, they love one another. And off to Vietnam he goes. And the letters begin to get exchanged. Yeah. And they are exchanged over a period of almost 2 years. He does the tour. You have some war in there, but you also have that love story, the counterpoint. Then one day, Nicole, the tone of her letters changes.
Hmm.
It's just not her. She's not, and he's thinking the worst. I've lost her. She's at Duke. He's in Vietnam. I've lost her. I've lost her to one of those college boys. Damn those college boys. They've taken my girl away. And a couple of more letters come. He's about to come home. And so he gets off the plane on the tarmac. This is in eastern North Carolina. That's where I said it. And there stands his mentor, Doc Turner. And there stands his beloved's mom with big tears in her eyes. So you're going along, and some spoilers here. You're going along and you're thinking, well, this boy's not going to come home from Vietnam, right? He gets home to the realization that her mother has written those last few letters, and they couldn't tell him while he was still in Vietnam that she has been horribly, mortally wounded in a car accident, being chased by a really bad boy in that town. She has a traumatic brain injury. She's still alive. She's in the family home. Come on, you need to see your girl.
Wow.
And he is with her to his last breath, to her last breath, and he wishes it were his. He wishes it were his.
What a
So
story.
I've just had her die, and Nicole, now that I'm married to her, changed the whole ending. That's my Danette. I'm a newlywed. This is the love of my life. This is a miracle right here.
Well,
And it
tell me
changed the end of the book.
about Danette.
She is my everything. She is my world. I had given up. I'm tired of this, tired of all these women. I'm done with it. It's over. I've begun to pray, Lord, I'm not my own, I am yours. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of screwing it up. I was going to drop out into the equator, drop out into the Caribbean,
Drop out of the date.
whatever. Yes, I'm done. And dear friend, he's a Methodist minister, and he knew her, and he got to know me, and he said, I think you two need to meet. He said it first to her, and she said yes, and she was dating someone, and I had been dating someone in California, long distance. And Nicole, the minute I laid eyes on her, literally the moment I laid eyes on her face, I knew this is the woman I am to marry. Why
Wow.
did it take you so long? It was one of those things. I knew I was going to marry her. And so the book and she and I, our relationship, they coalesce now. And I
That's
don't know how it's going to end yet. I don't
well,
know.
don't tell me. Don't tell me. I'll have to read it and the audience.
Nobody's told me yet either.
Well, you'll know soon when it's delivered to you and you feel it and you're up and
That's it.
putting it in your
That's it.
phone notes and everything. I tell you, you have quite the career, quite the story. You are brilliant. Your writing is just off the charts. And you're right. It's all about the writing. And you have such a gift there, Michael. I didn't have that gift. I had a little bit of, but you're
Oh, come
incredible
on.
with your
You're so sweet.
career and what you have accomplished and still accomplishing. Is there anything that's you want to do that you haven't done yet, or something that you're thinking about other than maybe new books moving forward?
One thing, and this will sound like a vanity thing, but it's not. I would like to try my hand at being an actor, but I want to do it in.
Done it. It's not as easy as you think.
Oh, I know. Believe me. But I want to do it in a way that makes me completely invisible.
Oh, explain
Uh,
them.
one of my heroes as an actor, and just as an actor, is Johnny Depp. Depp loves to disappear into a character. And I was not bitten at all by this bug at all until I wrote She-Ra. Because there's one character in She-Ra, and he is the absolute worst guy in the book. He's one of the worst human beings I could ever conceive or think of to write. His name is AC. That's the only thing that you have to know him. It's the only moniker he has is AC. It's kind of like Alice Walker in The Color Purple.
Yeah.
Old Mister. That's his name. He doesn't have a name. He just calls him Old Mister. What do you think AC stands for?
I don't want to guess. I don't know.
Antichrist. He's a
Oh.
guy who rolls off a freight train into a town, and he seems harmless. He gets caught, touching female underwear in the backyards, and women shoo him off, and he just seems like a harmless kind of old hobo of a guy, but he is far, far worse than that.
No
And
kidding.
he commits an act, he commits a crime in the book that a little girl has to live with,
Mm.
and she puts an end to him, and it's an end that he has coming, and it's his own hand. That's the guy I want to play.
Yikes. I don't know if I want to play that kind of
I
character.
want to play that guy. And
But you
you
know
want to
what?
know why, Nicole? This is why
Why?
I want to play him. Because I wrote him, so I know him. I know how he sounds. I know how he looks, all of that. But he is the absolute complete opposite of me,
Right.
especially with regard to women. My wife will tell you, he is the opposite of me. And so I want that challenge to go in there, and I can do the dialect. I can do the Appalachian dialect. I wrote the doggone story, and I've told Danette this, and I'd have to read for it, of course. The director would have to give it to me, and I have to earn my way to play it. But I want to go in that trailer, and have those makeup artists, and they are brilliant, work on me, contact lenses, wig, the whole thing. And when I look in the mirror, when I can't see myself, and I come out, and my wife looks at me and she says, "Who is that?
Who are you?
I,
Who are
I don't know
you?
who that person is. Who is this person?" Yeah, then it gets good. Then it's a challenge. Can I telegraph that? Having written that character, having written that person, can I telegraph that in front of a camera? Because you and I have been in front of cameras being ourselves our whole career.
Right.
But that's just and that will probably never happen. But
I
it's just
think
a
it
thing that I would
will.
like to
You
have.
have to just put it out there and it will happen. Okay, so you said the Appalachian accent. What is that? Give me a little taste of that.
Oh, well, it's just a surprise, surprise, surprise. I ain't got nary. Where in the cornbread purgatory you been? I've been here waiting for you for 3 days. Where you been? God Almighty. It's that kind of
That's
thing.
good. That's good.
Well, when
Yeah,
you grow up in it, it is there.
it's in
It
your
is there. Now,
soul. It never escapes.
let me tell you, I can do it in multiple dialects.
That's
Yes, because I
awesome.
was raised that way, and I've sounded like this since I was in about the seventh grade. But I can break into it anytime,
I love
anytime.
that. Well, Michael, we could talk forever. I mean, just about stories in your life and
You're so kind.
experiences. And I have just thoroughly enjoyed this. If people want to connect with you, gain access to where they can get your books,
Hmm.
be looking for what you're doing next, how do they do that?
LinkedIn is the perfect spot now. There will be a dedicated retail site and website for the books coming here very, very soon. Again, it's Where Did Joe Go? She Reign. That's She Reigns is the two words. And Spinner's the Funniest Knuckle Road it will take a while, but Where Did Joe Go? I promise you, it'll be delightful, folks, because of who illustrated the book. You wanna tune into that. So that'll be out there. But LinkedIn is the best way to get me. I'm wide open there. You can private message me there, and we will take pre-orders for the book as well. You're so kind to mention that. So
Yes,
kind.
of course. And of course, your media company, Heartstrong Media, folks can find that as well, correct?
They sure can. It's so funny, Nicole. We came out of the gate so surprisingly strong. I haven't even done a website for my own company yet. We were busy working for clients, and we're still doing that. But it'll be there. It'll be there one of these days. We're going to get there with it.
All
It
right. Well,
it's
just go. The best
embarrassing.
we get with you is LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah, that's the way for now. And
Perfect.
you are so kind to connect me to your audience. Your audience is in the very finest of hands.
Well,
And
you're very kind. I only want to put good content and positive stuff into this crazy world we live in. So thank you for being
exactly
my
right.
guest. Shine so brightly for my audience.
You are so kind. And thank you for letting me dive into that childhood and show people a way out of that darkness into the light. That's what it's all about. We have to lean into that in order to find that light. And I thank you for letting me share that passion that I have, especially for women who are being hit, who are being abused. You don't stay, you go. And thank you for letting me say that out loud.
Absolutely, 100%. You come back anytime and be my guest. How about that?
You are so sweet. When we get this book on shore, and it'll be here soon, I would love to, Nicole. I'm going to send you one.
I'm counting on it. All right, Michael. Thank you so much.
A joy. Nicole, thank you. And thank you, everyone out there.
Absolutely. And that will do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Until I see you again, I hope you have a great day.